What's up, my wizards? It's Dev. Mtg down there, right? Pointing to it on your YouTube screen. You know where you are and why you came. We're on that magic. And today, woke up with some piping hot Core Set 2020 spoilers, y'all. Now, a couple of caveats. Before I get in, just two things I want to talk about. First of all, Core Set 2020 spoilers don't officially start until next week, and my exclusive preview is until the 24th. So there's still some time to go in this preview season. And these are the only previews we're going to see this week. These three cards are the only previews we get this week. Here's the other thing, though. They're all Chandras. All three cards today are Chandras, but don't despair. And don't be like, but too many Planeswalkers. Because some people have already made this complaint on Twitter, you know, it means we're going to get 3 Jaces and 3 Nisses, and no, we're not. Blake Rasmussen, Wizards employee, has already come out on Twitter and said Chandra is the only Planeswalker that's getting 3 different iterations in this set, because this set is very much about Chandra and her journey. So she gets Planeswalkers, plural, but all the other Planeswalkers in the set are just going to be at the Mythic level. So keep that in mind. So with all that said and out of the way, let me go ahead and start with the uncommon Chandra here. This is Chandra Novice Pyromancer. 4 mana, 3 and a red for a 5 loyalty Planeswalker. You can +1 Chandra and have elementals you control get +2/+0 until end of turn. Or you can -1 Shands and have her add 2 red mana to your mana pool. Or her ultimate, in quotation marks, you can -2 and have Chandra Novice Pyromancer deal 2 damage to any target. Now, first thing, before I get to the actual function of the card, I refuse to believe that, like, 14-year-old young Pyromancer Chandra is better at Magic than ancient Jaya. That's kind of crazy. If you compare these two cards, Jaya from War of the Spark and this Chandra here, kind of similar. The passive ability on Jaya is amazing and probably better than anything this Chandra does, but this Chandra has 3 different abilities, can tick up, that's kind of neat, and cost a mana less, so it's just like better than Jaya in most ways. And that's a little crazy to me when you factor in the experiential difference there. It's a little, But let's actually talk about the card here, because I don't think it's a terrible card. My favorite thing you can do with the card is just drop it on like turn 4, or maybe even turn 3 after some ramp, and go ahead and like protect it by creating mana. You know, drop it on turn 4, make 2 mana, drop a creature to block for it, or drop a lightning strike to kill that thing, protect your Chandra with her own ramping ability. It's really nice. You can play this and still have mana left over on turn 4 to do another thing. That's cool. But if you untap with it on the next turn, suddenly you drop a land and you have 7 mana available to you, which is pretty good too. Now, the worst ability on the card is the +1, but at least the Chandra can +1. We have an uncommon Planeswalker and +1. That's nice. So if nothing else, you're at least +1ing her, even if you don't have elementals out. And sometimes you'll probably use it for that reason. But I also like this last ability, just shock a target. This is what made me think of Jaya, you know? But again, in this case, this Chandra can tick up, so you can shock more than just a couple of times before Chandra's gone. And that's going to be important, you know? Even just shocking your opponent in the face is going to be a nice thing to be able to do sometimes. But the fact that this can just pick off small creatures over the course of a couple of turns, as far as uncommon Planeswalkers go, I think this is like one of the best ones we've ever seen in the whole 2 sets that we've seen uncommon Planeswalkers, but that's saying a lot. There's a lot of uncommon Planeswalkers that see play, you know, even all the way down to Kazmina, but obviously, like, Saheeli sees play. There are uncommon Planeswalkers that people are messing around with and getting results, and as far as uncommon walkers go, this is way up the list for me. But we can't talk about the uncommon one all day. Let's move on to the rare one, which looks really, really good to me. This is Chandra Acolyte of Flame. 3 mana, 1 and 2 red for a 4 loyalty Planeswalker. You can 0 this Chandra to put a loyalty counter on each red Planeswalker you control. You can also 0 this Chandra to create 2 1/1 red elemental creature tokens. They gain haste, sack them at the beginning of the next end step. If you -2 this Chandra, her ultimate, and you may cast target instant or sorcery card with converted mana cost 3 or less from your graveyard. If that card would be put into your graveyard this turn, exile it instead. Okay, so a couple of neat things about this Planeswalker. First of all, her 0 is basically a +1. You know, it gives her a loyalty counter, as well as each other red Planeswalker you control. Each other Tibble, or 3 mana Sarkhan, or 5 mana Sarkhan, or other Chandra and a 4 mana Chandra that you control, and suddenly this card becomes very good. I've already played mono red Planeswalkers, which was labeled mono red dragons, but it's more of a Planeswalkers deck, or kind of a mono red mid-range that's not quite big red. But anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. This is very good in that, because that deck plays like 18 Planeswalkers. So obviously this first 0 ability is just ridiculous in a deck full of red Planeswalkers, and it only costs 3 mana to get going in the first place. The problem is, if you throw it into play and immediately plus it, in air quotes, then it didn't actually do. You spent 3 mana to not actually do much. You got a 5 loyalty planeswalker. You're just hoping to untap it. They're still in play on the next turn. So the 0 can either be really good on a board full of planeswalkers, or just be a +1 that does nothing. That's bad, right? But that doesn't mean that the card is bad. There's a lot about this that I really like. Like, first of all, notice, I think this is actually really cute. If you combine 4 mana Chandra with 3 mana Chandra, then suddenly you'll be getting 3/1 elemental creature tokens with haste that you sack at the end of your next, or the beginning of your next end step, which is sort of what we're used to when it comes to red elemental creature tokens. We're 3/1s. So you combine the two Chandras, you get normal hasty sack them at end of turn elemental guys, but just zeroing for 2 tokens that you sack at the end of every turn actually isn't bad. It doesn't allow you to build board presence over the course of a few turns, which would be a little broken for 0 loyalty. Let me just throw that out there. But it still allows you to create threats every single turn, and there's something to be liked about that. But really my favorite thing about this Chandra is the last ability. Just turning all of your 3 mana and under spells into spells with flashback, essentially, is really good. And obviously, this is great for burn decks. Get a little extra reach. Suddenly you can cast those lightning strikes and shocks and stuff in your graveyard. But what's also cool about this is, any color that you've combined with this other than red. Or, if you go red-blue or something, suddenly you can start casting those ops and those chart of courses out of your graveyard, and that's really important too. Or maybe, just bear with me here, because there's so many ways that you can use this last ability. You in a black-red list, you recast Duresses and big-time removal like Cast Down, or maybe even Grixis. You can recast things like, Thought Erasure and stuff. There's just a lot of play on this card, even if it just looks like it's meant to go in, like, burn decks or planeswalker decks that play burn and stuff like that. That's one of the only things I don't like about this card, is the tension. You have to play a fair amount of red planeswalkers to actually break that first ability, or to make it decent in the first place whatsoever. But you also have to play a bunch of instants and sorceries to make this last ability worth it too. So a little bit of deck building tension there, but I think it's still more than worth it. If you're just going to recast a lightning strike out of your graveyard every now and again, or a lava coil, something like that, then this is a really good way of doing it. Again, just giving all of your 3 mana or less spells flashback is a huge game and easily the best thing about this Planeswalker, and I think the one ability that really makes it worth looking out for. A 3 mana Planeswalker is fine in and of itself, and this is probably better than the other red 3 mana Planeswalkers, a little bit better than Tibalt, depending on the situation, yes, and much better than Sarkhan in like non-dragon decks at the 3 mana slot. So if we're looking at, red Planeswalkers decks, then this is a very good one, and note that it doesn't have to be a mono red planeswalker deck. Nikal Bolas, for instance, is a red planeswalker. So you can do all kinds of stuff with this walker. But we got one more Chandra to talk about real quick, and that's Chandra Awakened Inferno. 6 mana, 4 and 2 red, for a 6 loyalty mythic planeswalker that can't be countered. And you can +2 Chandra to have each opponent get an emblem, but at the beginning of your upkeep, the emblem deals 1 damage to you. And you can -3 Chandra to have her deal 3 damage to each non-elemental creature. And finally, you -X Chandra Awakened Inferno, and she deals X damage to target creature or planeswalker. If a permanent dealt damage this way would die this turn, exile it instead. So pretty much every printed ability on the planeswalker is very good, including Can't Be Countered, which is just unbelievable against control decks. Will this be the thing to take out Esper? I think it might be. I mean, look how well this plays against Esper. It always comes down pretty much no matter what, can't be countered. And it's always going to tick up at least once before your opponent can Vraska's Contempt it or do whatever they want to it. So you at least get the tick up. And at that point, Control can no longer let the game go on for 10 or 12 more turns. They will die if they do that. And if you get multiple emblems, it just becomes really, really difficult for your opponent to do anything about, especially if you're prepared to let the game go long. So you can just kill them outright with an emblem or 2 or possibly even 3. The longer Chandra stays out, obviously the better chance you have winning the game. But even after she's gone, you still have a decent chance of winning the game because of the emblems, plural, that she's provided your opponent so generously. But this can also just be a 6 mana sweeper, so resolve it, get to that point in the game against aggro, and suddenly everything's gone. Banalish Marshal and everything on down is pretty much dead at that point. Even though 6 mana is a pretty steep cost, you don't mind paying 6 mana for not only a sweeper, but a sweeper that can't be countered and leaves behind a planeswalker to do even better stuff on subsequent turns, Or Another thing that's kind of demoralizing about this minus ability is that you can sweep them, keep your Planeswalker out, and then when they try to rebuild their board, they realize they're just sitting across from another, wrath effect. How is your opponent going to, even want to rebuild their board with a bunch of 2 and 3 toughness creatures when they know you've got a sweeper just sitting there on the other side of the board waiting for them to rebuild? So that seems demoralizing. And the minus X is the exact opposite of the sweeper ability. You got one ability that sweeps wide, and you got another ability that goes tall. This can kill huge stuff, all the way up to a 6 toughness creature when it first enters the battlefield. But just imagine ticking it down on one turn, and then ticking it up on the next turn, then suddenly, even if your opponent decides that they're going to, instead of rebuild with a bunch of small guys, they're going to play their one big guy, well, Chandra can kill that. It's not a big deal for you at that point. I do wish that it dealt damage to players, but then you could just 6 mana uncounterable 6 damage, which actually doesn't seem so bad when I think about it. But if that card did a bunch of other stuff, that would be a little bit too powerful. So I understand why just creatures and Planeswalkers, but the Planeswalkers text on that ability actually makes it a lot better against decks, like Esper again with that deck. Just kill Teferis and Kayas and Narsets, the occasional Liliana, Karn. There's a lot of different Planeswalkers that people are playing right now, and not just in Esper, obviously. A lot of decks are based around Planeswalkers. Come down, bust up a Liliana, come down, bust up a Gideon, whatever, come down, kill a Sorin. There's a million Planeswalkers. This can just come down uncounterably and just beat immediately, oh, nice Planeswalker there, kill it, deal with mine now. That seems really, really good too, especially again that you can just use this ability multiple times in a game, and hopefully you're backing up your Chandra with not only burn spells, but smaller creatures and stuff on the curve before her. So it's entirely possible, that you can, burn a creature, burn a Planeswalker and get it down to an acceptable loyalty, or attack into a Planeswalker with one of your creatures, get it down to an acceptable loyalty, and then just -3 Chandra to finish it off, and suddenly you've killed that Planeswalker, and you've still got a bunch of loyalty on your Chandra. So there's just so much about this that I like. I think it's right up there with 6 mana Liliana in terms of how good a 6 mana Planeswalker can actually be, and this is destined to guaranteed see some play. You guys know I'm a little bit hard on 6 mana cards sometimes, if you've been watching the channel for a while, but this is one of the exceptions, just like Liliana, where you can look at the card, read it, and immediately be like, oh yeah, that's going to see play. That's going to see play. If you hate Esper decks or control decks in general, this might be the thing that knocks them off their perch, so rejoice. But I guess that's it for today. Just three Chandras and no more core set spoilers until the beginning of next week when they start in earnest. So make sure you subscribe, hit the bell for notifications so you get those spoilers. But go ahead and do that. We got a bunch of content coming out in this next week before core set spoilers start, because we got to do a deck tech, maybe 2 this week actually, and a couple of gameplay videos too. So there's a lot of content. If you like my face, make sure you like the video, spread it around the YouTube recommended world, and because it's harder and harder to do nowadays. So make sure you do that if you can. And also, like, share, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications. Even if you're not the kind of person that does those things, just do those things this once. It would make a big difference to your boy. But you can also hit up the Patreon if you really like my content and you want to support it. It's just $1 a month at the lowest level, and I'll let you vote on what decks you want to see next and videos and stuff like that. So I'd give you something for your $1 a month. But I guess if you can possibly do that, do that. And of course, let me know how you felt about these Chandras down there in the comments section. Spoiler season's not quite started yet, but that doesn't mean there's not a ton to talk about. And I think all 3 of these Chandras have some real potential. So let me know how you feel about them down there, and I guess I'll catch you cats later. I'm Deb from The Place. Thanks for watching, my wizards. Spread love and be kind. Well, I'm doing this during the Patreon thing just so you don't get nosy. Whenever there's not a cat in a video, people are always like, no cat, bad video, 0 out of 10. So here's a cat for you. He's a sweetie pie. He likes chin rubs. Will he give me a kiss? Yes, eventually. He kind of came in on it, but whatever. You're a good bubba, Ziggy, and I just want you to know that even though there's no way you can comprehend this in any way, the internet, which you have no idea what that is, but still, the internet absolutely loves you, and that you don't know that the internet is in a fight now with who's the better cat, you or Waverly. So you should know that the real life fight that you're engaged in every day of your life, you have supporters on the internet, which again, I don't think you know what that is.